Hi, and welcome to the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, alongside of Dave Bushenfeld of the Times Papers and three smoking hot ladies of the Oakton Cougars State Championship Girls Lacrosse Program. They've been kind enough to join us for the first segment of this show. And for those of you that stay tuned in tonight, we're going to have the Robinson boys joining us for the second half of this lacrossed up episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. You like that? I know you like that. But before we get to that, we're going to thank the folks that make this show possible. And of course, we're talking about our underwriters. CCI Screen Printing for all your screen printing needs at 703-978-0257. And Triple Edge Lacrosse at www.tripleedgelax.com with their new logo for the summer. As you can see, the sun setting on some lacrosse players. But I'll tell you, the sun did not set, you like that? The sun did not set on this team this year. After last year, you guys won the state championship last year, and you come back and you do it again. Let's show the folks at home, before we start picking your expert brains as to how you did it, we're going to show them exactly the teams you ran through the regular season. We're going to talk a little bit about how you got through a difficult regular season schedule. And as you can see, you started off with Robinson, and we're going to talk about Robinson, Coach. That's a team that has given you guys fits traditionally through the years. Dave, Westfield's a team that had a pretty good year. St. Stephen's, St. Agnes, a tough one for you guys, but you know that one was kind of a learning experience. We're going to talk about that too, because just to get that game on your schedule is pretty big. Centerville, Fairfax, O'Connell, Herndon, Chantilly, and Holton Arms, a big win there. And Coach, looking at that regular season schedule, Dave and I were talking before the show, how did you get that? Does that schedule, I mean, with those private schools, as you see on there with O'Connell and Holton Arms and St. Stephen's, St. Agnes, was that a product of winning the state championship last year and saying, hey, you know, we can compete with the best of them. Will you guys give us games?
It didn't take just 1 year to have that kind of schedule. It's something that we've been working on I've played PVI in the past couple years. We played Visitation last year, National Cathedral School, Stone Ridge. Stone Ridge was somebody that we tried to get on the schedule again this year, but we had weather issues and whatnot. So we're actually 1 game short. We are allowed 11 games in the public schools, and we only had 10. So It was unfortunate that we got one opportunity less this year.
And for those of you who don't know, the Oakton lacrosse program won their second state championship this past weekend after beating Woodson in a thrilling game. We're going to talk a little bit about that game. We're going to kind of work our way up to that game, though, Dave. You and I both at that game. But leading up into the season, looking at Oakton's schedule, what impressed you about the Cougars and what they were able to do in the regular season?
Well, it's just, you're coming in defending champs, you know, the bullseye on your back, as they say, taking everybody's best shot. How were you guys able to deal with that kind of pressure?
I just think that, well, we came into the season with our slogan, just being expect nothing, earn everything. And I think that we really just tried to hit that hard because we were at the top and everyone just wanted to kind of beat us down. And so we were just trying to stay at the top, and we came out victorious, which it was very, very tough to just stay there the whole time, but I think we did it very well.
And Dave, you mentioned the target being on their back after being so successful, and not just successful last year, but you guys have been a successful program for a really long time. I got to bring it up, though, Coach. 1998 was your first year. That was your first region championship. You guys finally won the region after the last one being in 98. I was there for that game. I got a chance to talk to you after that game. Ashley, the Northern Region Player of the Year, tell us a little bit about what that was like to kind of get that out of the way and get it done and kind of stop the wondering of when's the next one's going to come.
I mean, it just felt like we like Victoria said, we came out, we wanted expect nothing, earn everything, and we just came out there, like she said, we haven't won this since 1998, so we came out with intensity and we wanted to win that game. So.
And you guys certainly did in great fashion. I mean, you guys have just been a dominant team, Coach. At times during practice, when you guys were just running through teams during the regular season, you won 15 straight to win the championship. Was it tough to kind of keep the girls going?
Well, games aside, I think it's always hard at practice just to challenge everybody because, the one thing that I hear, we do evaluations, and I read them yesterday, and, doing drills too long or doing drills that aren't necessarily game-like And so it's always about challenging, doing the basic ABC drill, not the ABC drill, but ABC drills, and then pulling it up a notch to make it relevant to the game we just played or the team we're going to see in a week or in 2 days or whatever. So, and we get to play each other. I mean, our offense plays our defense, so we get the competition there every day.
You see the best of the best, and I was going to ask you about practice. That's a lot about making these state championship teams. What do you think Coach Counts in her practice does to get you guys to be those good teams? What do you take away from practices?
I know that coming in to practice, especially before game days, or that you need to stay focused and be prepared for the game tomorrow, or and I think I don't know, learning new things
Plays.
Plays or running the plays so that we know them
Sure.
before our game. And
We kind of have the saying that the day before a game, you have to have game day attitude, because if you wait for game day, it's often too late. So that was something that we reiterated over and over and over, because there were some days where, I mean, you're right, you went out and maybe, weren't as challenged a couple games ago, but you don't want to settle for just being okay, I guess.
Well, you guys were more than okay. Speaking of more than okay, they were great in the playoffs. Let's show the folks at home exactly what these ladies here joining us from the Oakton Cougars program did in the playoffs. That's the playoff run there. Chantilly 15-4. That was a great game right there. And then you move all the way down to the Northern Region Final, 15-7. I promised we'd talk about Robinson, Coach. And the state final there, 12-10. And that score, you guys won by 2, but it doesn't tell the story of the game about how Woodson kind of came back. And we're going to talk about why. And Ashley, we're going to give you a chance to sound off a little bit too. But before we get to the state final, Dave, Robinson is a team that has given Oakton some fits. And we were talking before about Robinson. Coach, knowing that that's a team that gives you fits, and you started with them at the beginning of the year, and you get them again, are you worried ever going into those games?
Oh, every single time we play Robinson, we're worried. I mean, they're very well coached. They have a great winning tradition from years past. They had been on our schedule maybe 2 years before they were added into the district, and we had not beaten them. We had lost them regular season. They had ended our season in the quarterfinals of the regional tournament in 2003, I believe. And so every time we play them, no matter what happens, it's the same as, we have a lot of, tough competitors in our district, Chantilly, Westfield. We never, ever, ever, take a game lightly, no matter who you're playing. You're playing the game, you're competing against the game instead of the team, really.
Now, on the flip side of that, Woodson, the team you played in the finals, you have a kind of a rivalry with them as well. Talk about the games that you guys have had in the past few years.
Woodson's always been, just such a mainstay in girls lacrosse in this area, starting with Dare Bonham when he was coaching. He's done a great job over there, and Jen Carr has continued the tradition. But my first year, 1998, we beat them. We had beaten them regular season by a few, and then we beat them in the regional final by a good amount, maybe 4 or so. And then ever since then, we had lost and lost and lost and lost, and it was very frustrating because they're good, and you want to play your best, and we did not play our best. Actually, Victoria's freshman year, when she was playing, so she was there, but we lost by, I think it was 7 or 6 or something. It was a lot. They had a phenomenal team, so that's always in my mind. That one, regional final that we lost to by so many was always in my mind. And we played them last year in Florida, and it wasn't as competitive. But then, you never know when you play Woodson. And that team this year, every game they got stronger. They picked up more speed and more momentum with every game they played in the playoffs. And that was something that when we played them in the semifinals, all of us were like, we don't want to play them again. We do not want to play Woodson again.
Well, they got a great coach who's been around for a long time. Coach Carr quite well. But all right, so I told you, I promised you I'd give you a chance to talk here. We're going to talk about this a little bit. We'll move past it. But you got the red or the 2 cards, and the game was over for you. Luckily, you're going to get another chance to play some more in high school. But in a state championship game, walk us through what happened and how tough was it? I saw you on the sidelines when you were kind of done with the game in the first half. you were just kind of upset, and you know, you kind of felt like, what did you feel like when you had to leave your teammates on the field in the state championship game?
I mean, I was frustrated, upset, you know, because like I couldn't play with them again. But then I remember Coach Counts came over to me and she was like, obviously you can't be on the field right now, but you need to be a leader on the sideline and cheer them on to this win. So, but.
And I noticed that about you. You were crouched down on the end of the sideline for a while and visibly upset, but by the end of the first half and start of the second, you were doing that. She was happy. She was joking around. She was messing around. And then on the field, you guys, here comes Woodson, you know, and how difficult was that for you guys to fend off a Woodson with the Northern Region Player of the Year, you know, sitting on the sidelines and knowing that here comes this team that Coach Counselor said you guys didn't even really want to play again?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was obviously very tough, like, not playing with Ashley just because our team, like, we're such a cohesive unit that we've never really not played with many of our starters.
Right.
So just adjusting in such a critical game was obviously very tough. So we had to make that adjustment very, very quickly. And then I think when Ashley came out, they finally were like, okay, now we can do this. Like, they kind of got their, like, mental game right then. So it was quite a shock when they just, like, were so strong in the second half. And, I mean, we did our best to, like, fend them off. And, I mean, we did a very good job, but it could have a little higher.
All right, don't change the channel just yet, but the game is available on demand. You will be able to go on demand and watch the game. Fairfax Sports Network was there. Great call by Dennis Stewart and Lael Campbell. They did a heck of a job doing the game, as they have all season, doing all these games. And Coach, I wanted to ask you about that. When there is TV cameras there, what changes? I mean, that, you know, and the media is there in these big games, and during the regular season, you guys kind of, you know, you get through the games, and maybe there's not that much media there. But you know, and I'll ask you two guys the same thing. When everyone kind of swarms in the big moments, how much more difficult does it get as a coach to kind of keep your kids focused?
It's funny because it's the media, it's the fans. There's so many more people. I love seeing, you know, we have graduates come back. We have parents of friends or you know, of just different people in the community come out, and we really like that. I'd say it's not that hard anymore. I don't mean to, just because we had done the regional final for 4 years that.
Right.
You know, you kind of get the hype. It's just really nice to have the people there when we can end on a win. That's our goal, you know, in the beginning of the year, is to end on a win, and it's just nice to have the celebration there instead of, oh, great season, good try, but, you know, you get second place again. So.
Well, speaking of winners, we got 3 of them right here on the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm BJ Kubarulis alongside of Dave Bushenfeld, Gene Counts, the coach of the 2-time state champion Oakton Cougars, Ashley Kimmener, and Victoria Cable. We're going to embarrass you guys a little bit. We're going to pull up some baby pictures of you. No, I'm just kidding. We've got some stats that we want to show the folks at home. We want to show them exactly, as you look back at what you guys were able to do. A 17-1 record. You forced 269 goals, 125 against. You guys beat teams by an average margin of 8 and a 15-game winning streak. And also, when you look at some individual stats, I mean, obviously a team thing that you guys have been able to do, but as your teams have done in the past, Coach, under Gene Counts, since 1998, 2004, 06, and 07, all the districts. And then you see the region, 98 and 07, and then the past 2 state titles. We want to show the folks at home exactly what your individuals have done. Ashley Kimmener, sitting here with us, Northern Region Player of the Year, blushing a little bit over there. 48 goals, 22 assists. Dave, and you look at Victoria Cable's, you know, her season stats there and her career.
It's pretty amazing what she's been able to do. You see there 81 goals this season, 25 assists, 55 ground balls. You can go on, and then in her career, 209 total goals. That's just unbelievable amount of goals in 4 years playing.
She certainly poured them in, as did Katie Burkle this year. 27 goals, 19 assists, 43 draw controls, 47 ground balls, and 37 caused turnovers. And looking at Burkle's line right there, Coach, she's a girl that's a bit underrated and unsung. And when you look at her, she's kind of consistent across the board with all that. Talk a little bit about Katie Burkle and what she's meant to the team this year.
Katie Burkle's been she's a 3-year starter, so she's had plenty of experience and plenty of big game experience, and she plays the best under pressure. She thrives under, you know, pressure and competition, and loves. We always say we would hate to play against Katie Burkle. We love having her on our team, but we would hate to play against her because she is just so hungry and so desires to win and determined. But she was just a midfield presence. I mean, she did everything. She scored, she assisted. She really, as an attack wing, was more of a defending attack wing. She just really stepped it up on defense for us, and I think she has a bright future next year. She's playing at Tech next year.
Wow.
Now we've talked a lot about the offense. Obviously, the two girls sitting here have scored a lot of goals for you, but as the cliche goes, defense wins championships. Talk about Tori Morgan and goal and your defense as a whole and the job that they've done for you.
Oh my gosh, our defense. We love our defense. In the beginning of the season, we had Katie Jones was out. She's a basketball player, and so she was playing in her postseason with districts and regionals and states for Oakton. And we had a late addition, Ashley Abed, who came out a day after her season ended. Had no idea she wanted to play. I just thought she was just, coming around with Katie Jones. And having those two, we had Tori Morgan and then Kayla Hofer, Lisa Gavron, both juniors. Kayla is a second-year starter. Lisa is a first-year on varsity. And then Ashley Abed, Katie Jones, and Stephanie Light was our mostly of our defensive unit, including Ashley Kimner here. And they just played very consistent. They were very communication, good body defense. We always talk about using our bodies and not our sticks, and the stick is just an extra helper there. So we really were very lucky on defense. And Tori Morgan has just been so consistent. She's been a 3-year starter on varsity since her freshman year. Amazingly fast hands, just great reaction, and excuse me. And she can clear the ball farther than most boys can throw it. So.
Well, 364 shots taken, 169 saves, and 129 goals allowed for Tori. And you look at Hillary there with 49 goals, 29 assists, 38 ground balls. And we were up in the press box during the state championship game, and we were admiring. She just goes directly in a straight line. There's no thought. It is her in the goal, and she's directly just a beeline for the goal, and it works. I mean, she's certainly been able to pour them in. What is she good at on the team? What does Hillary do well for the Cougars?
She runs. I would say she's one of our, if not the fastest person on our team, and she just loves to run with the ball, and she thrives just taking the ball from the defense to the offense and scoring those amazing goals where you're like, where did that come from? How did that go in? And she just, I don't know, she loves doing that, and she's really good at it. So.
All right, speaking of being good at it, they are good at lacrosse. These three ladies joining us, Jean Counts, the coach of the Oakton 2-time state championship lacrosse program, Ashley Kimner and Victoria Cable. And before we let you guys go here on the Fairfax Sports Report, we want to ask you a couple of hot quiz questions here, okay? We'll ask each of you one quick little burner, all right? Who's the funniest person on the team?
Nor Meehan.
Okay, all right, Coach. Who is the person in the locker room you don't want to be around after a loss, even though you only had one this year? I know it's a tough question to answer.
Seniors.
Okay.
All the seniors. We had 10 seniors, and all of them, had very high expectations, and really, you had seniors who were like Hillary Freund, who were very focused, and they played real well during the game, and would be fine after a game, and can kind of see it in context. And then you had others who who were just not settled with anything but perfection from herself and from everybody else. So all of them as a group, I don't want to see them in a dark alley after a game.
All right, and for you, we're coming back, right?
Right.
What can we expect next year? Is it 3 going to be a charm? Can we start putting the pressure on? I mean, you guys have already had a week to celebrate.
I mean, I don't want to go in, thinking, all right, we're going to get it again. We have to go in there and, like we have to earn our, if we want, or if we, get that Triple Crown. So.
Sure. It's certainly not an easy thing to do, guys, and we want to compliment you from the Fairfax Sports Report on what you guys have been able to do. 2 state championships in a row, and the first 2 in Virginia's history. That's official championships. They worked real hard and a long time to make those official, and Jean Counts certainly blazing the trail for girls lacrosse in Virginia. So I want to thank the Oakton girls lacrosse program for coming on with us. We're going to go to break now. When we come back, we've got the Robinson boys lacrosse team coming up with us. Come on back and join us here on the Fairfax Sports Report.
too long. Bob the whips of big hint. Bob the whips of big hint.
Welcome back to the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, and joining us now is John Marcario of the Connection newspapers and Justin Fitzgerald of the Robinson Boys Lacrosse Program, the two-time state champion Robinson Boys Lacrosse Program, the coach of that program, along with face-off specialist David Lighty and Matt Kugler down there on the end. Two-time state champion Robinson Boys Lacrosse Program, making some time for us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. You're also going to be able to see that game on the Fairfax Sports Network, and you can also get that game on demand right now. But don't go too far and don't hit your remote right now, because we've got these guys are going to pick their brains for the next 20 minutes about what it was like to win the state championship twice and how difficult this season was. But before we do that, we want to jump right into our Athlete of the Week here on the Fairfax Sports Network. Every week we give you an Athlete of the Week. Pete Gudmundsson from Jefferson, a boys lacrosse player here on this Lacrossed Up episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. According to our records, or the records of Jefferson, he's led the Northern Region in scoring the last 2 years, 55 goals, just about 55 goals in each year. But Matt Kugler might have an argument to make there. He scored quite a bit in his reign here in the Northern Region. And speaking of the Northern Region, Coach, you guys have been dominant in the Northern Region, let's just be honest, for the last couple of years. What's that like, having that pressure going into every game? We asked the Oakton team the same thing, being a target, especially after winning the first state championship last year.
It's to a degree it's an honor, and I think it's also something that we're fortunate enough to have so many players that play other sports at the school, that they're aware of the the pressure that comes along with playing at Robinson, and something that we prepare a little bit for, but most of the guys are, they're aware of what comes along with playing on a sports team at Robinson.
For those of you just tuning in, we've got Coach Justin Fitzgerald, David Lighty, and Matt Kugler of the two-time state championship Robinson Boys Lacrosse Program joining us. They beat Westfield for the fourth time this season to take that state championship this past weekend. And got to ask you, Coach, we're going to look at your regular season schedule, and of course we'll see Westfield on there a bunch, but you guys saw them a whole bunch. We're going to talk a little bit about that team because they had a heck of a year as well. Let's show the folks at home your regular season schedule, and when you look at starting with Lake Braddock, then Woodson, the Oakton game was one of your closer ones, if you want to call it that, this year. And then Westfield, takes you guys into overtime. While we're right here on that first game, if you guys lose that game, I know you're not a fortune teller, but the tide could have turned not only in the Northern Region but in the Concord District. Looking back now, how important was that victory?
Very important, because we had a lot of young guys playing in that game. We were missing 4 or 5 guys to injury, and we got great leadership, from guys like the two on my left here. But you look at who's ended up scoring the winning goal, Chase Walton, who was a sophomore and who assisted on the winning goal. Daniel McNulty, a sophomore as well. And from a coaching standpoint, it was great to see, and somewhat of a reassurance that the younger guys would step up if they had to.
Now, both of you guys came up through the Robinson program. David, let's start with you. Being a young guy and seeing those other young guys develop now that you're a senior, what goes along with helping bring those young guys along after winning a state championship last year and then coming into this year?
Just really getting them ready for the mental edge, just because it's all about just your determination and what your goals are and what you expect to do. And just really getting them in the tradition of Robinson and knowing what they have to do to fill in the shoes.
And speaking of filling shoes, you filled some big shoes as well in your time, not for just the lacrosse program, but also for Bendorf's football program as well. That toughness, Coach, that he brings from the football program, you said you've got some kids that play some other sports. David, the face-off thing, it's so important and it's so underrated. You are the face-off specialist for the team. You know, how important is that role, and how seriously do you take that role?
Well, I mean, that's my job on the field, is get the team the ball. You know, it's like kind of like a make it, take it. If we're scoring goals and we get the ball back, there's not much the other team can do if we're on offense the whole time. So it's basically my job to make sure that we're possessing the ball.
Now, Matt, if you look at that Westfield first game, you beat them 11-10 in overtime. But the next 3 times you played them, you beat them by, I think, 4 goals, 5 goals, and 7 goals. I mean, what adjustments did you make to just really dominate the next 3 games after they took you to your toughest game of the year?
Well, it really just showed that how far this team progressed over the year. I mean, we started out, even last year, we started out with early losses in games to Woodson and Oakton and Westfield. And then we came out this year not wanting that to happen. You saw we won these games by 1 or 2 goals, and then our team just progressed from there. We just got on a roll, and we worked hard, and we got what we deserved.
And speaking of getting on a roll, let's show the folks at home exactly what you guys did in the playoffs. Of course, those are the games that really count when you come down to it. It's kind of life or death in the playoffs. And right there, Concord District Final, a win over Westfield, another win over Westfield in the Northern Region Final, and then you guys meet up again in the State Final. Matt, I got a chance to talk to you after the Northern Region Final, after both games actually, but it was Danny Fritz, I believe, that really came on strong in the Northern Region Final, and he's a bit of a good story, comeback kid that got hurt last year. Coach, as you mentioned, hurt his collarbone and had to miss the playoffs, and he scored, I think, 4 goals in that game. How good was it for you to see him come along?
Well, I've known Danny since I was playing Braddock Road lacrosse, and to see him play such a great game like that was really great. I mean, he's just come so far. He's worked really hard, and he deserved everything he got, and I was really proud of him that game.
And you were on the assists on a couple of those. And speaking of assists, we've beat this into the ground because you were the big scorer last year, and now you're a prolific passer, Matt. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, you kind of changed your role a little bit. And there were some stories written, one by me, one by a couple of other guys, that talked about how you took that seriously this year, coming into this year, and you wanted to be more of a distributor.
Well, Coach told me coming into this year that you had to kind of take what the defense gave you. You couldn't force too much. You couldn't do things that weren't there, and I kind of took that to heart. And I mean, I did take what the defense gave me more than a couple of times. I could say I forced it, but I mean, when there were people to pass to, it just made my life a lot easier. Defenses would sometimes key in on me, and it would help so much to be able to pass to people and watch them finish, and that was as enjoyable as getting a goal.
4 assists in the state final, if I remember that correctly.
4 assists.
3 assists. No,
4 assists,
4 assists,
3
goals. So he can still score, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Coach, if you look at that schedule of yours, especially towards the playoffs, do you think your defense was a little underrated this year? I mean, everybody knows Robinson can score goals, but your defense completely, no double digits all during the playoffs, only allowed 10 goals or more a couple times during the regular season. I mean, what was it about your defense that really was special this year compared to past years?
I think it definitely helped that you have a guy like Ryan Kleeman in goal, and early on, if you're a defender, you're playing in front of a goalie like Ryan. From a confidence standpoint, you're able to do certain things that you wouldn't if you had a young goalie or someone with inexperience behind you. But we also took advantage of that. We decided to a degree to stick to the Robinson tradition of being aggressive on defense, getting out and chasing the ball a little bit. And I think that as we progressed, the guys just developed more and more confidence, and certainly when we're able to double team the ball off the end line in certain games and have Ryan come out and cover an attackman and have it work several times, the guys just built off of that. But I also don't want to take away from the hard work that they put in. Guys filled roles and did some really significant things for us. Some great stories down there, I think. Going into the season, not knowing if guys who had been long stick middies the year before, like J.P. Ovallier, Cameron Cook switching from a short stick the year prior to a long pole. Ben Hilardes, all the work he put in the off season to prepare himself. And then Michael Weckman, great story, somebody that transferred in, father's military from Chicago, and certainly helped us out. Was great, and so many other guys. I think it was pretty evident that we're blessed with some talent, hard work. When you lose a guy like Mike Meyer, who had been starting for us in the last regular season game we had with Chantilly, and that we're able to continue to play at the same level.
Now, you have a state tournament is going to be at Westfield High School 2008 through 2010. The lacrosse, which has been held a week before the state tournament, the State Jubilee down at Newport News, is now going to be the primetime main event, 8 o'clock, closeout on Jubilee weekend. What does that mean for you as a coach, and how does that sound to just say lacrosse has gone from not even being recognized as an official state title 2 years ago to now you're the main event on the big weekend at the state level?
It's I think it's something of great significance. I think it reflects the fact that that the level of play in the area is getting much better. I think it says a lot about the hard work that not only we put in this year, but the other programs in the area. You guys were at the game. I think you saw the crowd, big, huge crowds, and I think it's tremendous for this area.
David, you talked about, and Matt, you also talked about playing youth level, and that's something that the rest of the state doesn't have. I mean, you guys are lucky to have had that in this area, and of course, you guys also give back. I know you guys do some camps and that sort of fun stuff. What's that like, David? We'll start with you. Growing up through that system and it just being part of your life, where other kids in other parts of the state are just picking up a stick for the first time when they walk into their freshman team.
Yeah, I mean, especially since I was teammates with Matt ever since 5th grade, so I've been, growing up with the same teammates I have now. Danny, Fritz, all of them, I played youth ball with them too, so it's really just an advantage getting to know them and know how they play, and just being able to trust them when it comes down to it in the big games, when it comes into high school and stuff like that.
We talked about, I talked about this with you before, what you do in the off season, Matt, and you talked about basketball. I thought that was a pretty interesting point. Tell the viewers, why do you do that, and what are the similarities in the game?
Well, there's a lot of similarities between basketball and lacrosse. A lot of coaches say that in the off season, if you're playing another sport, you have an advantage over anyone who doesn't, just because you're still competing and learning other ways to do things. And basketball is similar just because, you're getting up and down the court just like you are on the field. You got to work with your teammates, and you can't be selfish. And that's something that's so important in lacrosse, is you can't be selfish.
And you were really, this year you were very, very in tune with that, about how you come across to your teammates, and you're an All-American, 2-time Northern Region Player of the Year. How difficult is that sometimes to be, in the locker room and just want to be one of the other guys, when guys like us are always asking you for your time after games and kind of singling you out? How tough is that to kind of just want to be one of the guys, and what comes along with that, stresses and pressures?
It definitely comes along with a leadership role that you have to have, and you always have to be making sure that people aren't doing dumb things, and making sure that they're all working hard and not losing focus. And at the same time, sometimes you just want to relax and just have someone else do it, but you just have to suck it up sometimes and just take it.
Now, David, I was on the field before the Westfield game. You guys came out really pumped up, really kind of cocky. Then all of a sudden, those first couple minutes, you have some turnovers. You're suddenly down 1-0. What was going through your mind, knowing you weren't playing at your best Robinson level and you were trailing 1-0?
Yeah, well, during the season, I know in the back of my head that we have never really scored the first goal every game, and I just know that our team really has the composure to stay out through the game, and just know that we have more talent and we have more potential, and just knowing what we can do on the field if we really just work together and do what we could do.
Now, Matt, you guys lost back-to-back games at the end of the regular season.
Right.
Some people might have looked at that and said, oh, there's a little kink in the armor. Robinson could be set for fall this playoffs, and you just kind of squashed those thoughts. What worked in those two games that kind of got you motivated to just run the table for the rest of the way?
Well, we started out the season with 9 wins in a row, and then we got to those 2 games with Landon and Gonzaga, and those were 2 losses there. And so people will look at that and say, oh, those are 2 private school teams, they're supposed to lose that. But we came into both those games wanting to win, thinking we had a chance to win. So after those 2 losses, we kind of felt like we had something to prove, and the only way we were going to get all the way to the end of the year would be to win 9 games in a row, just like we had started. So if anything, I think it inspired us. It didn't put anyone down. It just showed that we had something to prove, and we weren't going to let people say anything different.
And you guys took both of those teams, to the brink. I mean, those are 2 legitimate, as you mentioned, private school lacrosse programs. And I think that the interesting thing that both your program, Coach, and Coach Council's program has been able to do is schedule those tough opponents. And let's show the folks at home what you guys were able to accomplish throughout the season. When you take a look back, 18-2, you guys forced 242 goals, 129 given up, and you beat teams by an average margin of victory of about just over 5.5 goals, and you ended on a 9-game winning streak. So, when you look at that, and your only 2 losses are to those 2 programs from this area, is it something you're going to continue doing? Is it something you feel that they're learning from?
Absolutely. I think we already have them on the schedule for next year, and you need to play those programs to a degree figure out where you need to improve. I think it's at the same time tough playing those programs because you look at their schedule and who they've played before they end up playing you. But it's just a great way, to a degree, to also bring your team, back down a little bit and refocus. And it's something that I think there are a lot of programs doing that in this area now. The top programs, and it would be nice to get more games on the schedule, but I know we have that restriction.
And for those of you just joining us now here on the Fairfax Sports Report, I'm your host, BJ Kubaroulis, alongside of John Marcario of the Connection Newspapers and the Robinson Boys Lacrosse Program. Joining us here today, Coach Justin Fitzgerald, David Leidy, the face-off specialist. He's headed to Virginia Wesleyan, and Matt Kugler, who's going to be headed to UVA. And guys, going now from this area and to play at the collegiate level, usually they're taking guys from up further in the East Coast where the game has already been a bit more developed. We've already talked about how you guys have taken lacrosse in the state of Virginia and pushed it to the next level, as John mentioned, in the prime time spot in the next couple of years in the state tournament, which is pretty big. How do you guys, though, feel like when you're going to your own collegiate lacrosse programs to kind of carry the torch, in for the Virginia area?
Well, you definitely have to represent Northern Virginia and the players that are here. There are so many athletes that play here, and a lot of them don't get recognized at the college level just because they can't get their names out there, like the Landons and the Georgetown Preps. And it's unfortunate, but that's how it is. So I don't know what to expect at the collegiate level, but whatever comes my way, I'll make sure that Northern Virginia gets recognized.
Big David Leidy, you're going to be headed into a program as well at the Virginia Wesleyan College. What are your expectations of the next level? Do you feel prepared?
Yeah, I mean, there's always room for improvement. I need to work my game a little more. It is a level higher than it is now, but I expect to come down there and just really try to make an impact as soon as I can.
Coach, losing a great group this year, as you are. Before we let you guys go, I got to bug you about it. I mean, you guys have won it now 2 times. What can you expect? I mean, you're losing an All-American and a bunch of great guys. Can you expect to compete for another state championship?
Well, I certainly don't want to provide anyone with any motivation. But you guys asked, how many guys did we have on the roster at the end of the year?
Yeah.
We had 42. The guys that were brought up from JV and the freshman program aren't guaranteed a spot on next year's roster, but I think how well we do next year will be a direct reflection of their leadership this year, what they passed on to the young guys, and we at the same time we were able to play a lot of young players at key positions throughout the year that got valuable experience. So I feel very good about next year. I think it'll be exciting because it'll be a challenge, and for the past the reason of what we've done in the past 2 years, certainly people will want to beat up on us a little bit, but I think we return a great core group of guys, and again, talked about expectations of playing at Robinson in the program, and we bring back young men that understand that.
All right, and for those of you that watch this show, you understand what the top 10 rankings have meant over the last couple of weeks, and the top spot for the boys has always been a lock. The Robinson program has been right up at the top of our rankings here on the Fairfax Sports Report. And as you look at the boys' top 10, Robinson finishing out the year, these rankings sponsored by Triple Edge Lacrosse and compiled by Triple Edge Lacrosse. Robinson right there at the top, 160 points, and every single week ranked right up at the top, Coach. Westfield not far behind, Woodson, and then Oakton, Chantilly, Langley, Yorktown, Madison, West Springfield had a breakout year this year, and Hayfield rounding out the top 10. That is your boys Triple Edge Lacrosse top 10 to finish out the year. And then the girls, you look at Oakton, we just had Coach Counts, Victoria Cable, and Ashley Kimmener on with us. Oakton right up at the top, 110 points. They were a unanimous number one, John, all the way through. Woodson, Robinson, take it away.
Woodson is second, Robinson third. Then you had Chantilly at fourth, Yorktown at fifth. Then you had Loudoun Valley, West Springfield, big year for them. Then Langley, Annandale, and Stonebridge closes out your top 10 for girls.
That is your Triple Edge girls and boys top 10 Triple Edge lacrosse. I want to thank the Robinson boys program, Coach Justin Fitzgerald, David Leidy, and Matt Kugler for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Again, you can catch their state championship victory on demand. Go to our website at www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com also to find out more air dates for this show and for the state championship game. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back with more playoffs. Dave Bushenfeld is going to join us again. And again, I want to thank you guys for joining us, and good luck to you two guys, and Coach, we'll be seeing more of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Welcome back to the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, alongside of John Marcario of the Connection newspapers and Big Dave Bushenfeld from the Times papers, the sports editor of the Fairfax County Times. Well, guys, first of all, we want to say thank you and congratulations to the two state championship programs that joined us here today on the Fairfax Sports Report. We want to thank Coach Justin Fitzgerald, David Leidy, and Matt Kugler of the victorious Robinson Rams, and also Gene Counts, Victoria Cable, and Northern Region Player of the Year, Ashley Kimmener from the Cougars program for joining us here, guys. And real quick, wrap that up. I mean, when you look at what those programs have been able to accomplish at the state level in the last 2 years, kind of leaves the rest of the state scratching their head. There's really no one that can really compete.
There really isn't. Most of the state has our number in things like basketball, those kind of sports, but lacrosse is really what the Northern Region is good at. And anybody who's ever played sports knows how difficult it is to win one championship. To win two straight is just a remarkable feat.
The mark of how great those two teams are is they really weren't truly tested in any of their playoff games. They just straight up rolled the teams. Southwest Virginia, Central Virginia, Westfield, Woodson, Oakton, Robinson, hands down the best, no questions asked.
All right. Well, hey, speaking of the best, we're finding out now who are the best teams in the playoffs. And baseball, guys, you guys were at a couple of games. Dave, before we get to the big sport that everybody wants to talk about in the spring, though, baseball, I'm going to talk about a little track because these kids don't get enough love. And we have a lot of kids from this area. You talk about us being able to compete at the state level at different sports. Track is also where the Northern Region often gets it done. What happened at the track level this past week?
Well, the AAA Track and Field Outdoor Championships happened this past weekend down at Christopher Newport University. and we had several athletes come home with state championships. On the girls' side, Sarah Hadiji, anybody who's watched cross country or indoor track and outdoor track know who she is. She took home the 3,200 meter title, ran it in 11 minutes 2 seconds. The Westfield 4x800 relay won a state title. Samela Karoma from TC Williams took home the shot put state title. She threw it 41 feet 1 inch, which is very far. And the team that came closest to winning, Westfield, finished 7th overall in the girls' standings. Then on the boys' side, you got to start off with Sean Holston, won 2 different races, the 200 and the 400. Matt Anderson from Westfield took home the 800 meter title. Mike Spooner, another distance runner everybody knows from West Springfield, took home the 3,200 meter. And thanks to Holston, Lee was the highest local finisher. They finished 5th in the boys' standings.
Wow. Well, John, we talked about baseball being kind of the sport that everybody wants to talk about in the spring. What's going on the baseball front?
On the baseball front, as many people probably are aware now, my South County Stallions lost to Oakton in the Northern Region Championship game. I have to give the big guy over here some big props because before the season started, he said Oakton would be the Northern Region champs, and by all means, they're the Northern Region champs. Fortunately, Oakton did lose in the state quarterfinal game at home, though. South County, on the other hand, went down to Colonial Forge, beat them 3-1. They're advancing to the state semifinals where they caught a little break where they're going to face Deep Run instead of Danbury. Danbury was a heavy possible favorite to win the state title. Kyle Hall in that quarterfinal game pitched a complete game at 11 strikeouts. If Kyle Hall's pitching like that, you can bring in Jesse Beal, who can throw in that big bender. They could give Deep Run some big-time trouble. South County's deal is, though, if they give up more than 4 runs, it is going to be an uphill battle from the first inning. They cannot give up more than 4. Their pitching's going to keep them in it. Every game they're going to be in, no matter who they're playing, what the score is, it'll be a low-scoring affair. But their bats are a little suspect. They're going to manufacture the runs. They're not going to have that big explosion of an 8-run inning. I mean, an explosion for them is 2 runs in 1 inning. That's a big inning for them. So watch out for them. They'll play Deep Run. You'll see Jesse Beal pitch that one with Kyle Hall coming back and pitching on Saturday in the state title game if they make it that far.
Some great coaching to have if you need. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but if you need it, you've got your ace available for the state championship game. So some great coaching there. Speaking of some great coaching, Dave, in the Northern Region boys soccer scene, the coaching over at Jefferson has been incredible, but the players have also stepped up and made names for themselves as well.
It really is unbelievable. Jefferson only has 1 loss on the season, but they kind of snuck up on people. Nobody really knew a lot about them. They ended up taking down Westfield, who was the favorite playing at home in the Northern Region title game. They won that game 2-1, and then they went on Tuesday night to win their quarterfinal match against Forest Park. They actually went down 2-0 in the early going in that game, scored 3 unanswered goals to win that one. And one player that's been unbelievable for them is Harry Beto. In their last 3 games, he has scored 6 goals. Against Robinson in the Northern Region semifinals, he had all 4 of their goals in the 4-0 win. Got their first goal in both the region final and the state quarterfinal game. And you talking about Sean Burke, their coach. He's done it with the girls programs. He won a state title with the Woodson girls program in 2004, and now he's right on the doorstep of winning a state title with the Jefferson boys, which would be an unbelievable feat.
Absolutely. And speaking of unbelievable feat, Kate Teisinger's got some unbelievable feat for the Centerville Wildcats. She has been on a tear. Kate Teisinger scored 3 assists in last night's victory, a 3-1 win over Colonial Forge. Teisinger is a girl who's been phenomenal all year for Centerville, but they have such a talented lineup, it's kind of hard to pick and choose their stars. But their 2 stars, legitimate stars, Morgan Benz, a senior who's headed to the College of Charleston next year, will not be playing her freshman year of college. She'll be having surgery coming up in the next couple of weeks because of a knee injury that occurred in the Langley game. And Jenna Richmond, a freshman phenom who led them in all their statistical categories, including goals 12 and assists 11. She's out with a leg fracture. I don't want to say it's a huge fracture. It's a stress fracture. It's not a broken leg. So she's not in a cast. She is walking around, and she could be available, but it's day to day. They didn't even know that she was injured until she had to go to the doctor to get an x-ray, and it kind of came out of nowhere. So she has sat the last couple of games. But in this time, Teisinger has scored 2 goals and 5 assists to lead this team to where it is right now.
Yep, and they've got other people stepping up as well. Erica Pinto scored 2 goals in their quarterfinal win over Colonial Forge. It's kind of a team effort with them. Coach Warren Williams has said, they have the 2 girls out and they're great, but it's really the whole team that's got them to where they are. They won their 2nd straight region title and advanced to the state semifinals for the 2nd straight year. They're hoping to get over the top and maybe meet Lake Braddock again in the state final game.
Speaking of getting over the top, Lake Braddock's done it a couple of times. In the last 4 years, they've been in 3 state championship games and they've won twice. So that's pretty impressive when you think about what the Bruins have been able to do. They also won last night a game that I was at and covered. Lake Braddock manhandled Woodbridge at Woodbridge, and just a totally different, you can tell the difference, and I talked to Coach Liz Pike about this, the difference between the northern region and any other region. Well, that's not the beach, but the Northwest region. I mean, they totally manhandled, this team, which is a good team. Woodbridge was undefeated, 19-0-1 going into that game. They had outscored opponents 83-9, and they had shut out 8 of their last opponents, 13 shutouts on the season, and since May 1st, they had outscored teams 28-0. So, but this is a Northern Region team without its top star, Kat Weiler, who was sidelined also with a leg injury. Every team seems like these days losing their top star, and they go in there and they manhandle them en route to a 3-1 victory. But before we get too far from that game, I do want to mention that Kristen Liebert, a freshman from Woodbridge, finishes the season with 25 goals and 9 assists. Wow. And if my calculations are correct, 25 goals leads the AAA state all over the state, and she's a freshman, so someone to watch out for on that end. And speaking of watching out for teams in softball, guys, has been kind of an enigma this year. We thought Westfield would be kind of a big dog, and we knew Robinson would be good. Stonebridge came out of nowhere and really surprised some people this week.
Stonebridge came out of nowhere, but Robinson is truly the big dog. Robinson won their state quarterfinal game last night. They will be advancing to the state semifinals. They're getting very consistent and solid pitching from Kelsey McIntosh. McIntosh is one of those bend but don't break pitchers. She will sit there and she will give up 10, 11, 12 hits in a game. She'll give up 2, 3, 4 runs. But you know what? Robinson will have a 7th spot on the board or an 8th spot on the board. And when it comes to runners on base and Kelsey needs to get that big out, she's going to do it for you. They're getting very big, consistent hitting from Marcy Bowdrin, the freshman. She had a big 3-run homer. That was a decisive factor in their quarterfinal game. Erin Henning's been on fire for them. She's got double-digit hits over their last 4 games. And the funny thing is, teams not from this area think it's okay to pitch to Dorian Shaw because they don't really have the full scouting report on her. They haven't seen her a lot. They're thinking, all right, well, 3rd person in the batting order, I should be able to get him out. No. That is going to be a key factor come the semifinal and I believe state final game. She's going to be having a game-decisive hit somewhere, and it's going to bite somebody. I think Robinson's taking home the title in softball.
Well, I think if you're, if you're Robinson, you're feeling pretty confident going in to a state championship tournament with Dorian Shaw up to bat. I mean, the girl's incredible. She's a big kid that can just knock them out of the park, and really, I mean, that's very intimidating if you're a pitcher from anywhere else in the state, Dave.
It truly is. I forget the name of the 3rd baseman from Westfield, but Dorian actually nailed the line drive that ended up breaking a bone in the girl's face in a game during the regular season, just to give you an idea of how hard she can actually hit the ball. So it would be a mistake to pitch to her when people are on base.
And on that note, we're going to thank the folks that make this show possible. Of course, we're talking about our underwriters, and you can see who our underwriters are on the web. Go to www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. And our underwriters, thanks to our teammates, CCI Screen Printing at 703-978-0257 for all your screen printing needs. And it's the endless summer of lacrosse, Triple Edge Lacrosse, www.tripleedgelax.com, one of our special teammates. You can go online to find out more information about Triple Edge Lacrosse and all of our underwriters and fun bios and write-ups about who we are and our oncoming guests and when the show will air again. Go to our website for all those details. We want to thank you folks for joining us here on this Lacrosse Up episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, and after a long hiatus, I got to say, guys, I'm a little rusty tonight, but it's good to be back in the studio. John Marcario of the Connection Newspapers and Dave Buchenfeld of the Fairfax County Times. Again, thanks for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. And until next time, keep rooting on your Northern Region teams in the state tournaments.